Imajo zelo na energijo. In ve, kako nas spraviti iz tega. Imamo priložnost, da se zaveščate. Ja, hvala. To čutem. Pri meni. Kitaro igra, ja. Ok, še kaj? Heca se, ja, veliko se heca, ja. Še kaj dodati?
Ok.
We were just talking about your good qualities.
You're silly. Anyway, so you got cartels? Ayo Radha Madhuva Kunave Hare Madhuva Kunave Hare Yadamalaka Ivaluda Yadamalaka Ivaluda Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parakacharya also better than Shima, divine grace of our ISKCON founder Acharya, divine grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Krishna, Acharya, Shri Saku. Say go Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Gadadha, Shri Go, Bhakta, Vrinda, Shri Krishna, Shima Kunda, Govardhan Ki Jai, Dalvanam Ki Jai, Jai Jai, Ibunamai Ki Jai, Shani Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, all glories to the assembled taste, glories to the assembled taste, glories to the assembled taste. All glories to Shri Guru Gauranga Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad, Shrimati Bhakti States. Kormani Pacharni Divishish, Shunyavadi Paschat. Shah, Giranjana Shlagaya, Didikant, So I am very happy to be here with all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. It's wonderful to you. Beautiful temple, Shri Shri Panchatattva, just really overwhelmed with happiness. So, what I'm going to speak about today was the topic I was just talking about. So very nice people class was Dharma. It's an interesting word, Dharma. And the question usually arises as to, what is my Dharma? So anyway, let's figure out, first of all, what does Dharma mean? It's interesting. So when they say, my Dharma is to work for the government, that's not it. Or my Dharma is to eat a lot. That's not it. So, Dharma really, the root of the word Dharma means basically that which sustains something. And probably generally translated as the inseparable quality of a particular thing, person. And an example of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the chart, was that of water. Water as a dharma, what? Liquidity. Of course, I was joking with some devotees before that water sometimes can change its, it's not actually changing its dharma, but it appears to change its dharma with solid gas. But its actual dharma is liquid. Under extreme circumstances, it appears to change its dharma, but its dharma changes. It's really interesting. So, what is our inseparable quality, and how will that guide us in life to be happy and fulfilled? These are important questions. So first we have different levels of Dharma. In other words, we have physical Dharma, sometimes termed as material Dharma. And we have spiritual Dharma. Let's try to figure out both things. But material Dharma, or physical Dharma, as the case may be, is important too. Because if one simply concentrates on spiritual Dharma without being aware of your material physical Dharma, your spiritual Dharma will be very unsteady. This is actually pointed out by one great acharya, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in many of his literatures, particularly one, if you're interested in reading, called Chaitanya Shikshamrita, in which he points out that we have two types of, let's say, duties in this world, or even needs in this world. So in order to understand one's place in this world, before we get to spirituality, of course, spirituality, it seems to be very easy to understand, but it really isn't as you go about it. Then we have to talk about the Dharma of us, that is duties, plays, nature of us in this world. And that involves something that's described by Krishna himself as varnashrama dharma. Some of you may have heard that word, varnashrama dharma, which is a system for ascertaining how one fits into this material world. This is very important to understand what you should be doing in this material world in order to be stable and steady in spiritual progress. Because the ultimate goal is Krishna consciousness. The ultimate goal is to understand who you are, to make a solution to the problems of life, birth, death, disease, old age, dukkha, dosha, darsha. Those are the problems. The ultimate problems. But in the meantime, you got a whole bunch of other problems. Financial, how to get along with your wife or husband. How to get along with your parents, another problem. What's it about to pay? Anyway, you got a whole bunch of other problems you got to deal with too. But ultimately, yes, that's the ultimate goal that we should focus on. How to be happy forever, filled, to shanti cha, how to be satisfied and happy. Unlimitedly, always. Kevalananda Khan, because that's what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching. That's what the purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement is. To actually teach you how to be happy forever. Or as Prabhupada said in the 1960s and 70s, stay high forever. Because that was an expression utilized in a different culture, which I'm not slighting that expression. But it very much resonated with a group of people who were called hippies. So that's really what we want. We want to stay high forever. We want to be satisfied, to shanti cha, ramanti cha, joy forever. And have that happiness increasing, kevalananda kanda, and worship Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Pleasure. Chaitanya. Anyway, so let's talk about basic down-to-earth stuff. Varnashrama Dharma. Krishna explains this Varnashrama Dharma. And so what the Varnashrama Dharma is basically to understand 8 different things. Pretty simple. There's 8 different categories, basic categories. Some people mix like me. So I have a hard time understanding. But anyway, there's 8 characters. There's 4 categories of basic, let's say, natures of people. And those categories are based on something called the modes of nature. For those of you who don't know, the modes of nature, there's three modes of nature. Anyone know it? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. And different people are influenced by different combinations, permutations of these three modes of nature. It's just like different colors in the spectrum. You take three basic colors and combine them in different ways, you come up with all the colors, shades of the spectrum. And that's how your computer screen works. It doesn't have all these little dots of millions of different colors, lines. You the basic colors. So these modes of nature affect everyone, and we all have a particular body. That's this thing we're talking about. This thing we're walking around, which is described by Krishna as a yantra. That yantra means a machine. It's a complicated, sophisticated machine beyond the ability of any human being to design or even understand. But it is a machine. So we're walking around with this particular machine, and this machine is affected by different modes of nature. How's your mode of nature today? Anyway, so let's talk about the different modes of nature and how they affect our machines. Let's say some people are primarily, their machine is affected, it's not you, the soul. Remember that. This is not criticizing your soul. Your soul is above the modes of nature. Once you go above it, you gain it, like that. When you engage in devotional service, someone else, some teacher, help that you raise above. So, but the body has certain modes of nature. And so let's say you get someone who's like just about mostly all in the mode of goodness. That's called a Brahman. All these situations are equal. One can become Krishna conscious, one can become perfectly spiritual from any particular role in society. So let's say someone is purely mode of goodness, body is not a, body's mode of goodness. There's a Brahman. And how can you tell if someone's a Brahman? Well, they like to study. They like to study philosophy and speak, teach, all those other nice things. And this is interesting because we refer to the Bhagavad Gita. And if they're issued, let's say, a physical challenge, like what we call Kshatriya, the second group, is influenced mainly by the passion, they're not interested in fighting. Brahma is simply interested, he's peaceful, self-controlled. That's his nature, and studying and living very, very simply. So that's a Brahma. And then the next category is what we call a Kshatriya, which, if any of you read the Bhagavad Gita, you will understand that Arjuna is in that category. And a Kshatriya is very much interested in reputation, prestige, winning. Like Krishna said to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that if you don't fight this war, people are going to make fun of you. So he's very much interested. That's his nature. He's a pure devotee. Arjuna's a pure devotee. Kshatriya tendency. But if you say that to a Brahmin, that people are going to make fun of you, Brahmin says, wow, make my day. Help me become more detached from this material world, right? No problem. For a Kshatriya, if someone challenges him to a fight, Just like we were talking to a very nice devotee before class. He's interested in physical education. I said, so what do you do if someone challenges you to a fight? Can you refrain from it? No. You'd say, let's go outside. Have it out. So that's Kshatriya. So we have to identify ourselves in such a way. And then the next category is called Vaishya. Someone who's like to acquire things, makes money. I used the example before. If you send them to the forest, they'll think about selling trees. Do we know people like that? Yeah, I know people like that. And then, and so, but that's good. Because in Krishna consciousness, we need that too. Because how are we going to pay the bills of the temple? How are we going to do this nice project? That's, I think you did a project here. How are you going to accomplish this unless someone helps financially? The problem is not going to be able to do that. Kshatriya may be good, you know. But Vaishya, yeah. So we need Vaishyas. We need Kshatriya. Kshatriya means those who protect others. It doesn't mean those who like to fight just for the sake of fighting and beating up people. That's not Kshatriya. So we need all these. Krishna wants all these people. It's important to understand one's identity within this world, one's machine identity. And then Shudra, he likes to work with his hands, artistic work. We need so many people like that. Who do you think did all these paintings to? Generally not Brahmins. Kshatriya's not going to paint. Sit down and paint, you know. Not usually. So everybody can become perfect by understanding their particular nature. That's called varnashrama dharma that is within this world. And then, of course, within these particular categories, you have something called the brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. And these are the spiritual divisions. Brahmachari basically means one is a student, single student. Grahastha means one who is married. Vanaprastha means retired, not playing golf, of course. That's not exactly what I mean by retired. I mean someone who's not more engaged in so much work to make money, but they're engaged in more spiritual life. And sannyas is someone like me, you know, a rare species, protected species, right? Mars is one of the ones who is in charge of protecting the rare endangered species. So anyway, so you have these 8 divisions. Okay. But for everybody, there's the same spiritual dharma. And what is that dharma? What is that identity of the spirit soul? And that's described very nicely by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And you better sort of point at your Krishna Asa sometimes. But we are the does. And ultimately that means that we're eternal servants of Krishna. Voluntary, joyful, loving servants of Krishna. And we're servants of Krishna's servants. That's our identity that we're hoping to achieve. And by identifying the physical dharma, we can be more steady in achieving the spiritual dharma. So what are the steps that we should take in achieving the spiritual dharma? And once we're acting according to our material, physical dharma. Those steps are elaborated on by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, specifically in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We find that in other literature, such as those written by Srila Rupa Goswami, Sindhu, there's different stages of achieving your spiritual dharma. And one should take these stages step by step. not to try to jump to a higher level than one is at. One of those stages, first, adosha. In the beginning, you have a little interest in Krishna consciousness. And because of that little interest in Krishna consciousness, sounds interesting, you may have some ulterior motive. In fact, we all have an ulterior motive before we come to Krishna consciousness. And even in Krishna consciousness, we have ulterior motives. Ulterior motives means we have some self-centered motive. Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, 4 types of people come to him. People come because they're inquisitive. People come because they're looking for knowledge. People come because they're in distress. And people come because they want some material goods. They want money or something. We find this often. Actually, even in India, they even have ceremonies in which they ask God for money. One called the Satyanarayan Katha. Anybody from India? Yeah. Anyway, in which they pray to God. They tell stories of other people getting money, and they enthuse each other and worship God based on those stories. So people come, and we all come for one of those reasons. And it's good to be honest about it too. You know, oftentimes I hear people say, you know, devotees say, all I want is to love Krishna. And I said, well, tell me all about it. No, it has to be some self-honesty. What are my different motives? And in this way, understanding motives, or what we sometimes call an artist, you can be honest, work, and pray to Krishna in an honest way. So anyway, so getting back to this whole hierarchy of progress, there's a do-strata. And in the beginning, there's a little interest, a little trust, not quite complete faith. And then you begin to want to associate with the devotees. Because those of you who are here are seeing how happy the devotees are. Happy. Yes?
Yeah.
I mean, people hesitate. Am I in the wrong movement? Because see, Maharaj has been serving so many years. He is so happy. He's always happy. Right? Well, at least it's honest. That's honesty, actually, was a good thing. So he's. Always get what you want. So anyway, so, but you know, he's happy. He's humble. All right. Not. So, yeah, I mean, that's the beginning of Krishna consciousness. One feels relief from all distress, according to Srila Goswami. And then you actually get, it's auspicious, hopefully I'm happy. And that's been my experience. That, you know, I can't say I'm happy 24 hours a day. But it's so much more, it increases as it goes on. More and more you become happy. So if you come to the temple, you associate with those people who are happy. You know, you come to the temple and you say, what is Krishna consciousness all about? And they say, oh, it's great. You become good. Who's going to be his devotee here? So then that's called sadhu sangha. And you begin to associate with the devotees, which I think a lot of you are beginning to do. And as you associate with the devotees, you start to emulate or copy some of the things they're doing, and you want to say, well, they're chanting, they're happy. So let me try this chant. And that's called bhajana kriyas. It sounds good. So one begins to perform the activities. And then you get happier and happier. And then as you're getting happier and happier, then there's certain things that stand in your way, in the way of your happiness. These are called narcissists, unwanted things. Not like you. It's an unwanted thing. Sometimes people approach me and say, my whatever relative is in the way of my becoming Christian. I said, I don't know why you became Christian. What's in the way? No one's in the way. It's your lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, fear. These are called anarthas. And you work on purifying yourself. How do you work on purifying yourself? Chant you chant the holy names with devotion, with love, with intention. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays in his Shastra. Ayana Tanuja Kinkaram Patikam Mahapishane Pripaya Sita Julis and O son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna, I'm your eternal servant, but somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of material suffering and birth and death. Please, it's horrible. So, help me, fix me up, and place me as one of the particles of dust that you lotus. So that's Bhajana Kriya. And then by this chanting and approaching Krishna with love, then all these unwanted things go away. Then you're no longer haunted by these ghosts. It's actually like a ghost or witch of lust, anger, and greed, and illusion, and envy. I mean, envy doesn't make you happy, does it? When you're envious of someone, you want something that someone else has. You're lusting out, your mind is disturbed. Bhukti, bhukti, city, calm, as another verse. That whether you want something for yourself, like gross things, things, the car, money, you're not shanta. You're not peaceful. So you want to be peaceful because you can't become happy without peace. That's why in India sometimes they keep chanting peace, peace, peace. Doesn't work. Yeah, I'm sure some of you are. Om Shanti 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 Shanti. Still not peaceful. But you're peaceful by understanding. Actually, there's another person about it. Anyway, by understanding and loving Krishna, then you get peace. The Shanti Charamati, another verse. Peaceful and happy. So that's why getting rid of these things or dissolving them by the chanting process and loving Krishna as you have. Because you're no longer haunted by these ghosts. So that's called an art of nivritti. And after you perform after you deal with these things, you're chanting nicely, then you become so stable and steady in life. Life is no longer like a roller coaster. Many times I ask people, how's your life? Now, sometimes it's real good, and sometimes it's horrible. That's the nature of this world. I mean, sometimes you're well, sometimes you're sick, sometimes the weather is nice, sometimes it's hot as whatever, H-E-double-L. And sometimes it's cold, super dukkha. But then one is always the same, stable, happy in all circumstances. And so Nishta is the type that's stable in one's life, in one's activities. And then after that, in Krishna consciousness, you get ruchi, which means a taste, such a taste for Krishna consciousness that every time you hear about Krishna, then your hairs stand on end. Every time Goranga, Valite, Habi, Pulakashura, every time you hear about what you tell you, wow, wouldn't that be nice? Every time you chant Hare Krishna, every time you take prasada, which I'm sure you're waiting to take and wondering when we finish. So then you feel ecstasy, happiness, ruchi. Then you become completely, I feel so much time. So then after that, you get completely attached to Krishna and loving Krishna. That yatma supersedity, that's the only thing that really satisfies your heart. You're happy. And then your emotions really start to blossom. You get into the stage of Baba. And I don't have time to explain what Baba means, but it basically means spiritual emotions. That every time you even see a peacock feather, which reminds you of Krishna, you just feel so happy. Everything reminds you of Krishna. You won't push the salvation, some, etc. See Krishna everywhere and see Krishna everywhere. Everything reminds you of Krishna. And anyway, and then after that, you come to the stage of pure love. And that's how to achieve your ultimate dharma. But again, first figure out what you don't. So first, or along with it, figure out where you fit in this material world so you can be stable and steady in executing your spiritual. And Krishna consciousness is that class. Krishna consciousness, the knowledge of Krishna consciousness encompasses everything phenomenal and numinous, everything material and spiritual. It's really amazing. We have information on the material world like astrology, we have Ayurveda, we have Vastu, how to build your house, how to eat, stay healthy in this world. And we have information how to go back to this. Wow. Well, not me, but the Vedas have all this information, and you're also fortunate to be exposed to this Vedic culture. So, should we take a question or just any class? Question. Okay, question. Anybody have any questions?
Surrender ourselves to Krishna and you know that we are always surrendered to Krishna.
There's that heavy word, surrender. Scary. So, I'd like to express it a little bit differently. You hear the word surrender, makes me want to run away. Wait a minute. Actually, I was explaining to devotees, this is a standard story I tell everyone, which is a true story. That when I first came to the Krishna conscious movement, 1969, I joined it. I joined in 1971, but I first visited the temple in 69. Devotees told me to surrender, and I said, I'm not able. They said, what are you doing with that long hair and beard? These are my greatest attachments in this world is my long hair and beard. So you have to surrender. And if you don't surrender, Kali Yuga, not only is Kali Yuga, but you're going to become a bear in your next life, because then if you look like this, like that. And then they read from the Bhagavatam about the symptoms of Kali Yuga, the she-jackals vomiting fire. So I turned to my friends and said, I just had an overdose of Krishna consciousness. So, okay, surrender. Okay, so I prefer to say connect to Krishna, love Krishna, and realize my true spiritual nature is an eternal bliss, full of knowledge, soul, such. That's appealing to me. And actually, Krishna conscious, well, let's see, Krishna conscious. The Krishna consciousness means to voluntarily give yourself to Krishna. Like Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, let's refer to Bhagavad Gita. So the whole Bhagavad Gita was Krishna explaining to Arjuna what are the results of different types of activities, basically, what Arjuna should do. And at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna asked Arjuna, so what are you going to do? Because Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight. This is philosophical. And of course, Krishna did say, the best course of action is to surrender. But in the end, he gives Arjuna a choice. So what are you going to do? And he really doesn't threaten Arjuna at that point. He doesn't say to Arjuna, hey, buddy, I'm God. And if you don't do what I want you to do, you're going to be in the fire and brimstone of hell while I laugh at you. Hey, no, he doesn't say that. He says, you choose. You count the knowledge, you choose. And Arjuna says, I'm choosing to follow your instructions. So Krishna gives that choice. And the choice, the reason Arjuna is choosing to fight, first of all, because he was logically convinced that's the best course of action. And secondly, because he loves Krishna. He was thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day. So he did it out of love, voluntarily. So I would say the goal of Krishna consciousness, what you should be asking is, how do we give ourselves voluntarily to Krishna with love, devotion, and happiness? Realizing that that's our nature, that is our dharma. Realizing that to me is surrender, but the word is sort of like scary. So I prefer not to use the word surrender. I prefer to use the word Krishna and be happy. The Prophet said, Hare Krishna, be happy. That's really what we're all about, chanting Hare Krishna. Yeah, like I'm happy in Krishna. I wouldn't do anything else. I've been doing this for 55 years. Who here has been doing something for 55 years? For so long, and they're really happy with their life. And it's the same thing for 55 years. Can you imagine? The same Hare Krishna mantra. I don't have a different mantra. It's still Krishna, 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 Krishna. I don't change it each day, sentence onto. I like the sun, I like Hare Krishna mantra, but I want a different mantra today. No, because it gets better and better and better. Then you want to chant more and more and more. I was asked one time in the GBC meeting, I asked, what is your favorite hobby? You remember that time? They asked the question. Yeah. And I said, my favorite hobby is, honestly, I like to chant 64 hours. It's so nice. You just turn off the internet for a few hours. Which is blissful, especially when you're getting emails all the time as a GBC member at this time. We got this emergency, we got this problem. We got this special meeting coming up in 2 hours. So, of course that's our duty too, that's our financial duty. Duty for Krishna. And so it just gets better and better and better. How many people can say that their life gets better and better and better? And I don't need to retire. I'm 76 years old. Do you want to play golf? What else would I do? Couldn't imagine. There's no attraction to the other. It's not that I'm repulsed by the other things. It's just like, it's boring. Someone says, you would like to go to the movies? The movie about Krishna? this boring. I can't imagine sitting 2 hours. It's like watching some stupid love story. Sorry about my sister. Could imagine. It's just because we're having so much fun serving Krishna. I mean, my whole day is serving Krishna. Woke up, went on the largely, walked the porch, and then came back, hey Krishna, which is nice service. You do that all. So, but, and then after that, talking to people all day long about Krishna history questions. Wow, this is like a dream come true. So no retirement. Yeah, the only retirement is called samadhi. You don't actually retire, you just go on what? Janani Janani Surya. Go on and do the same thing next life. I just want to do the same thing next life. Having so much fun. Open mind. Life after life is fun. Serving Prabhupada. Prabhupada, just being connected to Prabhupada is just so much fun. I mean, nectar, ecstasy, whatever word, superlative word. Any other questions? Yes. Last lady has a question.
Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for today's class. I would like to ask, can help us in lives, for example, unalternatively they
Right.
wrong. What can help us that we remain positive and enthusiastic about it? Especially when we start to see our real state that all of these negative qualities and
Good question.
we remain positive and support.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question because what I've experienced, I'm seriously. Whenever I perceive something less than desirable, that gives me more impetus to approach Krishna. It's like that verse I just recited in the Shikshastika, Ainanda Tanujikika. That basically I'm suffering here in this material world. But like Prabhupada said, we chant like a child calling out for her mother. So I personally find it gives me more impetus if I take it the right way. And it also helps me become humble, which is really hard for me. But because in the after the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the first book by Goswami, he equates humility with prema, with pure love of Krishna. So really, it really is. It helps us to be introspective, to see the whatever else is happening in our heart. And the pure devotees are thinking like that too, even though they don't have any knowledge. But you find Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs are like that. Mama Naveda Nashuna, Visharya Durjuna, Gopinath. He prays to Krishna. That I am a bad person. Durjuna. I'm a bad person. My heart is filled with all these different things. Please. Making a sinner weep. So it's actually a symptom of ecstasy. You actually feel happy. You can use your anarthas as an impetus to approach Krishna with feeling, with love. Krishna, I really want to connect, but you got to keep the goal in front of you all the time. I call that the why factor. We always have to think about why we're doing what we're doing. I am not chanting to get rid of the anarthas. I am chanting to love Krishna. So you have a choice to approach things from a negative standpoint. You start thinking less, over here, less. Sometimes you think about meditate on an art of war, it just grows. So I just think about Krishna saying, I want to love you. I don't have any love for Krishna. I have no attachment to the process of devotion, service. But I just wanted to come to that point. I wanted to please Prabhupada. And not only did we get the rabbis, I want to please spiritual master of Prabhupada. And it just put the question. So then, yeah, so being aware of one's deficiencies actually helps one. Sort of being unaware of the danger. So it's a good sign. It's actually a really good sign when you actually go, oh no. This good question. Hey, how long are we allowed to go on? Last one, not just the boss. He always makes sure that I behave myself. So, yeah, one question.
How can we?
Good question. Well, there's an interesting story from Mahabharata. When the Pandavas were actually in exile, make you believe they were Brahmins, they were basically had to be tested by King Drupada. King Drupada is the father of Draupadi. And basically Arjuna married Draupadi. But Drupada didn't understand whether there were Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. So he actually put out all the different implements for each of the varnas. So like he put out swords and machine guns, not machine guns. But he put out swords and different implements for Kshatriyas. And he put out different things for Brahmanas, Shastra. And he put out different things for Shudras, I guess for Shudras, nails, gold for Vaishyas. And the Pandavas immediately went for the weapons. They were looking at the weapons. What was this? I'm a sword. All right. So you may not be able to do that. But you can take the help of people who are more acquainted with varnashrama dharma. And they can facilitate you in understanding what is your psychophysical nature. And actually, the Guru does that too. Prabhupada, there's one statement, Srila Prabhupada said that one of the Guru's duties is to ascertain the psychophysical nature, the strife, it's not only the spiritual nature, which is, chanting, spiritual duties, but the psychophysical nature. You're a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya, you're a Vaishya, you're a Shudra. And so, so we need the help of others, because many of us would like to think we're Brahmins. And then we go to give Brahmins on class and we're thinking, how much money will it be? Or, I've actually even seen this in spiritual societies. I'm a Brahmin. I can do a ceremony in your house like we have for Vesh, housewarming, but I charge 500 euros. And you can just charge it. Is that Brahmin? No. So we have to understand our nature to act properly in accordance with the varnashrama system. And it doesn't mean we just classify ourselves in terms of those different dharmas, because we're all devotees of Krishna. We all want to love Krishna, hopefully. And we're all equal. Krishna says anyone who performs his duty within a dharma can actually achieve a spiritual perfection. No one's less, no one's more. Arjuna was not less than the Brahmins. Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's father, was Vaishnav. Krishna's father. And who are the greatest devotees in the world? The gopis. And they're Vaishnav, right? Pretty good. Krishna also appeared in that particular world. Also appeared as a Kshatriya. That's one round. And Krishna also. Krishna also was Devaki. So anyway, but he enjoyed more his role as Vaishnava. And the role, his role. Anyway. Okay. It's all I. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada. Panchatatva ki jai, Purnachari ki jai.
Not as specific about the story.